to the channel. Here we've got my 2016 Shelby GT350. We just hit 15,000 miles on the vehicle. And we're going to go over my history with the vehicle, my experience with the vehicle, as well as the story with this vehicle. And you'll definitely want to stick around for that. Alright, so here we go. We're going to start off with the inside of the vehicle. One, like I said in the intro, this vehicle just hit 15,000 miles. It is a 2016 and has been in my family since new. It is the option of the track pack. Back in 2015 and 2016, you could opt for a track pack GT350 or a technology pack GT350. The technology pack came with the bigger infotainment screen, leather seats, a different rear spoiler, as well as no oil coolers for the transmission or the diff. So from the outside, the only difference is this rear wing. This is the track pack rear wing. The track pack comes with the standard magnetic ride dampers, as well as the transmission oil cooler, as well as the differential cooler. So if you took this vehicle to the track and you had the technology package and not the track package, the vehicle would go into limp mode due to the transmission and or the differential overheating. So as far as the interior goes between the two, personally I can live with the lack of creature comforts, the heated and cooled leather seats, because in return you get these amazing Recaro seats. I mean, these seats, they keep you in place. Super, that's like 4-inch high thigh bolsters and probably pushing 5 inches on the midsection bolsters, wrapped in suede and Alcantara, as well as the leather and Alcantara wrapped steering wheel. You get this nice brushed flat, almost like satin black aluminum trim on the dash panel. Goes all the way across. Engine oil pressure and temperature. And there's my chassis number. So again, I love the interior of this vehicle. I don't mind the lack of creature comforts because it makes up for it in so many other ways. Now let's go ahead and talk about the modifications I've done to this vehicle. There hasn't been anything major that I've changed on it. One of the first modifications I did to the vehicle was get the Ford Performance driver and passenger side oil separators. I included a video on how to install these. It's very simple. I do take the vehicle to the track. Most recently Sebring. I'll actually be going again this Sunday. It just feels at home there. The next modification that we'll bring up is the springs. This vehicle has the GT350R front and rear springs, as well as the front and rear sway bars. Just kind of stiffens up the ride and gives it a little bit less body roll. And you can see them more in the back, but I've also replaced the OEM studs with these longer ARP 3-inch wheel studs. There are a couple reasons for that. One was, I mean, obviously they look better, they attract a little bit of attention, you know, they look a little more racy, if you will. But the second thing was my other set of wheels, actually the stock studs wouldn't fully engage the lug. I was still about 2 or 3 threads short on the lug, so definitely not something you want to have on the track at all. Moving on to the back, I have installed Borla Attack Axleback active exhausts. It keeps the characteristic voodoo noise, which is, in my opinion, one of the best engine sounds maybe of all time, but definitely in America, it's definitely the best sounding engine to date. And then lastly are the taillights. These are genuine Ford OEM European taillights. And when they flash, they still do sequentially, but as you'll see, the inner two are red and the outer one is amber. And that actually concludes all the modifications I've done to this vehicle. There's a couple other things that I want to do, but really it handles so well on the track as is. It just needs a couple more things, like a little bit more downforce. Like I mentioned, the other set of wheels and tires that I have, those are lighter wheels and stickier tires. So yeah, I've taken this vehicle to the track and it performs as advertised. Way outside the capabilities of my driving, abilities, but it definitely satisfies that urge. So why did I opt for the genuine Ford OEM taillights, European taillights, compared to aftermarket European taillights that you can get that are new are still cheaper than these were used? And that would be because the story of the car is, part of the major story of the car is, this car has actually been to Europe and back. It was purchased in the States. My father's the original owner, and while he had it in his possession, he exported it to Europe. Him and 3 other GT500s cruised around Europe for a couple weeks. They went to LeMans, the Swiss Alps, and it was one heck of a trip. And then the car was brought back. So once I took possession of the vehicle, I decided to put those on the back of the vehicle to always remember that trip. And it's a good talking point. They're just a great talking point. Everyone asks me, are those, aftermarkets or not? And then I get to tell them no and dive into the story of the car. So as I mentioned, my father was the original owner of this car. He bought it new from Tropical Ford in Orlando. I was working at the dealership at that time, and I saw this car come in on the trailer, brand new from the factory. I saw it go through the PDI process and staged on the showroom floor. My father ended up purchasing the vehicle on my birthday, March 7th, and then actually took delivery on March 28th, 3 weeks later, on his birthday. We drove around and I got to break in the vehicle. It was quite an experience. I had heard and seen these, but to actually get behind the wheel for the first time, coming from an S550 50, it's a completely different experience. So I've shared the story of this car with almost anybody that asks about it, because it is a pretty unique story. How many GT350s are out there that have been imported to Europe and come back? I'm willing to bet there's probably still only a handful, maybe 5. I personally don't know of any, but it's definitely a unique characteristic to the vehicle. The vehicle has also been signed by both Aaron Shelby, who is Carroll Shelby's grandson, and it's been signed by Billy Johnson. He's a Ford Performance driver, helped engineer all the Ford Performance vehicles as far as the driving and performance aspect of them. Him and his co-driver drove the competition version of this car back in 2016 in the IMSA Continental Tire Challenge Series. and they won the championship that year in the car's first year of competition, which is pretty impressive. Usually new models, when they come out, and especially competition versions, they usually have that's usually when they're working out all the bugs, is the first year of competition, but they were actually able to win the championship. So quite impressive. So if you're not familiar with the powertrain of this vehicle and what makes it so special, this is the 5.2 liter naturally aspirated, codenamed Voodoo V8. And what makes this engine unique is it has a flat plane crankshaft. And what that means is the rod pins, if you look down the barrel of the crankshaft, are offset 180 degrees from each other. A cross plane crankshaft will have the rod pins oriented 90 degrees away from each other. So if you look down the barrel of that crankshaft, it'll look like a plus sign if you line up the rod journals. And if you look down the barrel of a crankshaft of a flat plane, such as this one, it'll look more or less like a minus symbol. That allows the vehicle to rev extraordinarily quickly, as well as it evens up the exhaust pulses for better exhaust scavenging, which increases performance. Again, this is naturally aspirated. It produces 526 horsepower at the crank, meaning it produces over 100 horsepower per liter naturally aspirated. Dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, red lines at 8,250 RPM. It is quite an experience to take it up to that limit. Transmission is a 6-speed manual made by Tremec. Has nice short crisp throws, and the rear end is a 373 Torsen mechanical limited slip differential. It's got 6-piston Brembo brakes in the front with 16-inch rotors and 4-piston rear Brembo brakes. At the time of this video, this is the biggest flat plane V8 engine in the world. Also the highest red line for that size of an engine in the world. A lot of other flat plane engines are sub 5 liters. They'll rev to 8,500, 9,000 RPM. But in terms of flat plane crank V8s that are over 5 liters, this is the only one. And right now, as I said, it still holds that record 6 years later. This vehicle originally came out in 2015. It was a very limited production run in 2015. About 150 cars were actually made and sold. 2016, which this is, was the first full run of production, and 2020 was the last year of production. There is a couple variants of the vehicle. This is the GT350 No R package. There is a GT350 R package vehicle, as well as a GT350 FPS, which is the more race car version of this vehicle. Basically a factory race car. Comes with all the sound deadening removed, different transmission, springs, brakes, just everything, damping, tires, wheels, some engine mods to help with more balanced cooling and oiling, stripped out interior, just you name it. I do believe it's not even eligible to be titled for the street. Lastly, we're going to get into the maintenance of the vehicle and maintaining one of these vehicles. It's a very touchy subject, as there have been numerous, or if you look on the internet, all you're going to find is people blowing up their engines, oil consumption, and just nothing but issues, because on the internet people go out of their way when they're having a bad day to let everyone know about it. This vehicle has had only one issue, It was at 1,000 miles, the alternator failed, and it got a new alternator replaced under the factory warranty. Other than that, this vehicle has been perfectly running from day one. Not a single ounce of oil used, many track days. Fluids, they've been taken care of. So my maintenance strategy with the vehicle is unique to this vehicle, but also fairly simple if you understand how an engine with forged internals, especially a high-strung, high-revving V8 with forged internals, works. As far as day-to-day driving, whenever I start the vehicle up, I just let it idle. Let it idle until the oil temp hits at least 130 to 140 degrees. Once that happens, you can start driving it. Avoid going above 2,000 to 2,500 RPM until the oil temp hits at least 170 degrees. Then you can open it up a little bit more, but I would still avoid going above 5,000 RPM until you hit 190 degrees. It actually states in the owner's manual that to not go over 7,000 RPM until the oil is at full operating temperature. My best guess for why a lot of people have oil consumption issues with these vehicles is when the engine's warming up, that's when the clearances are the biggest and the oil is at its most easily, readily available to flow rate. So they drive it like a normal car, start it up, get in, drive it, and before everything warms up, expands, and fills out all the gaps, that allows the oil to basically be consumed, burned by the engine due to the pistons, the rings, and everything not being fully expanded when they're at operating temperature. Obviously that's going to lead to oil consumption, and it's going to look like the engine has an issue when actually it's just not being treated and warmed up properly. I've used that strategy from day one with this vehicle, and it has never ever needed to be topped off with oil. I'll drain the oil after 1 year, and I'll put any, this most recent oil change that I did on it, the oil was in the vehicle for 1 year, 4,500 miles, 2 track days. I drained out 9.8 quarts of oil, and this vehicle holds 10. The current oil that's been in the vehicle has been in there for about 3,000 miles. Been through 2 track days. Oil level is still full. Flush the brakes every year. The coolant has been changed out. The transmission fluid and the diff fluid were both changed out at 5,000 miles. It is necessary to get the break-in material out. You'd be surprised. The transmission, even though it only had 5,000 miles on it, the fluid came out very, very silvery. So after this next track day at Sebring this coming Sunday, I'll be doing both of them again. Because when you are on the track, you are heating these fluids up to temperatures that they don't see anywhere close to on the street. The stresses and strains on the driveline are nothing that you can replicate on the street. All of that is just my personal method of how to take care of this vehicle to avoid any sort of issues, other than the operator's manual stating not to go above 7,000 RPM until it has reached full operating temperature. All that is all just personal, professional-based experience. So if you want to take my word for it, it's up to you. If you have your own methods on how to take care of the vehicle, again, it's your vehicle. You can do with what you want. But however, this strategy has worked for me, and like I said, it's at 15,000 miles. Has about 10 track days on it, and has never had one issue in terms of motor blowing up, rod knock, oil consumption, none of it. The alternator failure actually happened at 1,000 miles, and that was before the vehicle had ever been tracked. It was just, things happen. That's why there's warranty periods for those reasons. Man-made items, they can have issues. So this is going to conclude my review of my 2016 Shelby GT350 with the track package. 15,000 miles of nothing but fun, smiles, grins, ear to ear. This is a true driver's car. Every driver's car box that is available to check, this vehicle checks them all. If you're in the market for a performance vehicle, it is hard to beat the performance for the money that you get with this vehicle. Again, 500 almost 30 horsepower, naturally aspirated, manual transmission, fantastic seats, brakes, handling. This car really is a true sports car. And the experience of taking it up to the limit at that red line is an experience that I can't even describe on video. You have to experience it for yourself. Even just to go test drive one. Get behind the wheel and you'll know what I'm talking about. So thanks for stopping in. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the story and background of this car. It's very personal to me and I plan to keep it for many years to come. Stay tuned on the channel for more updates, track footage, service videos, as I'll be doing more and more with this vehicle as the channel grows. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel for more content if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next one.